Hey y'all, welcome as we continue in the book of 2nd Samuel. Today we're moving into chapter 20 in the book of 2nd Samuel. The internal conflict between Judah and the 10 northern tribes of Israel have deep roots, and we see them continuing to grow. All it takes to light the fires of conflict is an enthusiastic speech from a wannabe leader, and this chapter reveals just that leader as that fire begins to ignite. We'll go ahead and start in verse 1 of chapter 20. There happened to be a troublemaker there named Sheba, son of Bichri, a man from the tribe of Benjamin. Sheba blew a ram's horn and began to chant, "Down with the dynasty of David! We have no interest in the son of Jesse. Come on, you men of Israel, back to your homes." So all the men of Israel deserted David and followed Sheba, son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed with their king and escorted him from the Jordan River to Jerusalem. When David came to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to look after the palace and placed them in seclusion. Their needs were provided for, but he no longer slept with them. So each of them lived like a widow until she died. Then the king told Amasa, "Mobilize the army of Judah within 3 days and report back at that time." So Amasa went out to notify Judah, but it took him longer than the time that he had been given. Then David said to Abishai, "Sheba, son of Bichri, is going to hurt us more than Absalom did. Quick, take my troops and chase after them before he gets into a fortified town where we can't reach him." So Abishai and Joab, together with the king's bodyguard and all the mighty warriors, set out from Jerusalem to go after Sheba. As they arrived at the great stone of Gibeon, Amasa met them. Joab was wearing his military tunic with a dagger strapped to his belt. As he stepped forward to greet Amasa, he slipped the dagger from its sheath. "How are you, my cousin?" Joab said, and took him by the beard with his right hand as though to kiss him. Amasa didn't notice the dagger in his left hand, and Joab stabbed him in the stomach with it so that his insides gushed out onto the ground. Joab did not need to strike again, and Amasa soon died. Joab and his brother Abishai left him lying there and continued after Sheba. One of Joab's young men shouted to Amasa's troops, "If you are for Joab and David, come and follow Joab." But Amasa lay in the blood in the middle of the road, and Joab's man saw that everyone was stopping to stare at him. So he pulled him off the road into a field and threw a cloak over him. With Amasa's body out of the way, everyone went on with Joab to capture Sheba, son of Bichri. The tribes continued their arguing in Gilgal rather than praising the Lord for the victory the Lord brought them to. And Sheba toots his own horn and leads a whole new rebellion. He was a Benjamite who favored the house of Saul, and he clearly had some influence. We need to be cautious about who we are following. We need to be cautious about following high-sounding influencers that are not encouraging us to follow Jesus and pursue him desperately, heart and soul. If the 10 tribes followed Sheba and divided from the kingdom, he likely thought that he could be their army commander and gain the power and stature over the kingdom that he so selfishly desired to have. When David returned to Jerusalem, he first ensured that his 10 concubine women were cared for. They had been forced to be with Absalom against their will, and David would not divorce them for his son's sins. In this time and culture, David is actually extending a huge grace to the 10 women who suffered at the hands of someone else's sin by ensuring that they were cared for in the palace the remaining days of their lives. They would have not been good candidates to remarry, so David is ensuring that they are actually cared for. Just as the 10 women are kind of restored but not truly unified, so are the 10 tribes restored but not really unified. God brings us out of exile, but the earthly consequences of sin makes things really, really messy. In response to Sheba's call to rebellion, David immediately sent word to Amasa, his new commander, that he needed to gather the troops to Jerusalem within 3 days' time. David knew he had to stop this division quickly, or it would gain momentum and all-out civil war would once again break out. Thousands of people in the nation had been willing to follow Absalom, and it seemed like the 10 northern tribes were easily influenced into following anyone. Amasa didn't show up within his 3 days of allotted time, failing his first task. David then gave the command of the army to Abishai, and David may have been concerned. If you think about it, Amasa had switched, or he had been a commander of Absalom's army, so he might have been concerned that Amasa might have switched teams as he went out to gather the troops. Since he had been once the commander of Absalom's army, he could easily see that he could switch to Sheba's side. Taking Joab's officers and David's mighty men with him, Abishai quickly assembled the army of Judah and headed north to stop Sheba. Along the way, they came across Amasa and the army he was gathering at the great rock of Gibeon, which was about 6 miles northwest of Jerusalem. He was very likely heading back to Jerusalem to report to David and get his orders, but he had taken too long, and it would actually cost him everything. Joab had absolutely no official position at this time. He had joined the army forces and went with his brother Abishai on his own to fight against this rising revolt. Joab was Amasa's cousin, actually, but he had no love for him whatsoever. It was Amasa who had led Absalom's army in revolt against David and his kingdom, and then he took the place of Joab as commander of David's army, which would have humiliated Joab greatly. Joab and his brother had defeated Amasa and his army in the last battle, and Joab likely viewed him as weak and inexperienced as a commander. The Judas kiss of betrayal gave Amasa the impression that this was just a casual meeting, cousin to cousin. However, Joab was crafty with his sword trick and caught Amasa off guard. There is no reason for Amasa to be killed. He had joined forces with Absalom, but David had declared peace and amnesty over the nation. That included both Joab and Amasa. Joab was a man who preferred to destroy those who stood in his way, though, so he left Amasa lying in a pool of blood on the highway. It was considered a very serious thing in Israel for a body not to receive a proper and respectful burial. So the sight of Amasa being left on the highway caused the marching army to halt. Their commander was lying dead before the battle had ever even begun, and Joab and Abishai had just left them there without a second thought about it. One of Joab's men was wise enough to actually move Amasa to the side of the highway and at least cover him up. Joab had taken back his position by force, and he would not let it go easily. We'll continue in verse 14. Meanwhile, Sheba traveled through all the tribes of Israel and eventually came to the town of Abel Beth Maacah. All the members of his own clan, the Bichrites, assembled for battle and followed him into the town. When Joab's forces arrived, they attacked Abel Beth Maacah, and they built a siege ramp against the town's fortifications and began battering down the wall. But a wise woman in the town called out for Joab, "Listen to me, Joab. Come over here so I can talk to you." As he approached, the woman asked, "Are you Joab?" "I am," he replied. So she said, "Listen carefully to your servant." "I am listening," he said. Then she continued, "There used to be a saying, if you want to settle an argument, ask advice at the town of Abel. I am the one who is peace-loving and faithful in Israel, but you are destroying an important town in Israel. Why do you want to devour what belongs to the Lord?" And Joab replied, "Believe me, I don't want to devour or destroy your town. That's not my purpose. All I want is a man named Sheba, son of Bichri, from the hill country of Ephraim, who has revolted against King David. If you hand over this one man to me, I will leave the town in peace." "All right," the woman replied. "We will throw his head over the wall to you." Then the woman went to all the people with her wise advice, and they cut off Sheba's head and threw it out to Joab. So he blew the ram's horn and called his troops back from the attack. They all returned to their homes, and Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem. Now Joab was the commander of the army of Israel. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was captain of the king's bodyguard. Adoniram was in charge of forced labor. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the royal historian. Sheva was the court secretary. Zadok and Abiathar were the priests. And Ira, a descendant of Jair, was David's personal priest. Sheba didn't really so much declare civil war as much as he declared national division. He dismissed the army and the citizens who came from the northern tribes and told them to no longer follow David, all under the authority that he assumed upon himself. He gathered himself a following, and they all ran off to the walled city of Abel Beth Maacah. Though he didn't specifically declare war, civil war began to break out. God calls unity and love and forgiveness, while the enemy encourages division and hatred and destruction. Joab was again commanding David's troops and followed Sheba to Abel Beth Maacah. They surrounded the city and they began to take action over the city, trying to take over it. And for the third time in the account of David's story, we now see another woman that God has used to change the course of events. Abigail was the first in 1 Samuel 25. Tekoa was the second in 2 Samuel 14. And now we are introduced to this very wise, unnamed woman of Abel. This wise woman called out to Joab from the wall, questioning why he is threatening the Lord's city, since they are not in collaboration with any rebels and didn't deserve to be attacked or harmed. Joab responded by explaining that it was just Sheba that they were after. The fact that this arrogant, power-hungry man listened to a woman in this time and culture is a miracle from God in and of itself. The wise and clearly influential woman persuaded the citizens to gather and kill the rebel leader and save their city. As a rebel against the king, Sheba did deserve the consequences he faced. Sheba wanted to be head of the army, but instead his head was thrown over the wall to the army. If we lose our mind today and follow things or people that we are not supposed to be following, we could lose our heads tomorrow. Rebellion against God will never succeed. This chapter closes with a second listing of David's officers. 2 new officers are present in this list: Adoniram, who was in charge of the labor of the prisoners of war, and Ira, who was David's personal priest. In this time and culture, women were not educated, they were not regarded, and they were barely acknowledged. They were treated as property. And it's beautiful. It is so beautiful that we see account after account of God continually raising up women in his plans and his purposes, in his leadership, and in speaking forth his wisdom. And it has been captured in scripture since the very beginning, and I love it. In this account, a foolish man attempted to divide the nation, and this wise woman of God saves the day. Through the wisdom of this woman, some level of resolution is achieved once again. Her quick action and wise counsel saved many lives that day. She served the Lord faithfully, and she pursued his peace, and it showed in her actions and words. It is up to us to choose every single day to lay it all down for Jesus. It's up to us to choose who we're going to follow and who we're going to worship. We are always worshiping someone or something, and it needs to be Jesus. We can't run our lives better than Jesus, and we can't and shouldn't ever try to take his place at the wheel of the lives that he has given us. We need to take our hands off and surrender to his will and plans and trust his lead, trust his guidance, and trust his love in every situation. He has been in every tomorrow, and he wants what's best for us. He has good plans for the lives he's given us. There's no one better to trust than our almighty loving Father. He will steer us home to his eternal victory that he died to give us. It's up to us to let him lead. It's up to us to let him guide us. It's up to us to let him love us. He will love us no matter what. It's up to us to receive his love every moment in the journey in heartfelt repentant surrender before the throne of God. Every knee bows, and we fight the battles before us on our knees, and the Lord wins the victory. He brings us to victory after victory if we're willing to trust him. It's not always easy. It's sometimes very painful, but then we need to reach up and trust him for his comfort as well, because he will answer. He will pour out his grace, his powerful grace, his comfort, his love, his healing, his restoration, his his redemption. He will pour it all out. He wants nothing more, but it's up to us to ask, to look up and receive it. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're having a glorious day in the Lord.